Good afternoon. This is Joan Miles, moderator of the last segment of Paul's show, Community Service from 10 to 1. My segment from 12:30 to 1 is called What Matters. Today our guest is Jeff Harris, Del Norte County Superintendent of Schools. I have to say, I mourn for the days when I was growing up. Things were simpler then and more wholesome. A big thing that we had that is missing now is respect. Respect for our elders, for our parents, for teachers, for each other, for the country, and most of all, respect for ourselves. We're going to play a Whitney Houston song at the end of the show today. It starts out, I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride. It goes on, I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. If I fail, if I succeed, at least I'll live as I believe, no matter what they take from me. They can't take away my dignity. Because the greatest love of all is happening to me. Learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. The biggest indication of lack of respect, self-respect, is the way young people destroy their lives with drugs. We coddle young people. Healthy competition is frowned upon. Everyone can get a prize just for showing up. The welfare state teaches dependency and lack of responsibility. Intelligent black writers are saying, and these are two titles, please stop helping us. And the other one, liberalism turns good men into whiners, weenies, and wimps. The scourge of socialism kills incentive, initiative, inspiration, and freedom of the soul. The country is an extension of ourselves, and the schools are not teaching love of country. Paul had a guest on the show last week who was running for California Lieutenant Governor. She sounded really good talking about how well she had done as mayor of Richmond and what she could do for Del Norte. But then she made a comment that was so disrespectful and immature. She referred to Trump as that horrible man in the White House. That kind of undignified attitude seeps down to the younger generation. One thing that has improved in the school system is teaching critical thinking. In my day, we were just required to memorize facts. What if students were given an assignment to do a book report by composing or creating 20 original questions of their own relating to the book? Or students could make up some of their own math problems. So that's the end of my input, Paul.
And as always, the views expressed by Jones are Jones and not mine. And there's a whole bunch to unpack there, and I feel painted into a corner because Joan brings a guest in that I'm to interview, and I can't retort to all of that. There's a lot to be said about not just criticisms of President Trump trickling down and influencing in a negative fashion the youth, but perhaps just the characteristics and behavior of President Trump also trickling down.
But it was tacky.
Yeah, and there's a lot of tackiness surrounding Trump in general. But, okay, let's move beyond that now. But again, as always, Joan, I would fight to the death for your right to express your opinions, and that's why we're here. It is community radio. And I'm joined live in the studio, Superintendent of Del Norte Schools. Now, the official title is Del Norte Unified School Superintendent. Is that your official title?
You know, we can call it whatever we want. It's just Del Norte County Unified School District, and whatever else I do is there.
All right, Mr. Jeff Harris, how you doing this morning or this afternoon, Jeff?
Doing well.
So I was going online and researching some things, and first off, let's see, we're going on, what, 3 years?
This is my third year.
Congratulations. How would you sum up your first 3 years in Del Norte County?
You know, it's been great. Kids are phenomenal. Parents have been phenomenal. And working with our staff, looking at what we can do, looking at the potential of our community and what our kids can bring to it in the future, and the working relationships that we have with city council, board of supervisors, for-profit, nonprofit organizations has been beyond inspirational as we've looked at, kind of recreating what we're offering for kids in the county.
Mm-hmm. Now, I was researching where you came from, and over Lassen County. What was the county on the other side of Reading? Was it Cow?
Immediately prior to this, I was in Shasta County.
Is it? Wait, but what was the school?
The school district was North Cow Creek.
I love that. North Cow Creek. That's wonderful. So, how big of a school district was that?
It was interesting. It was just a single school district, 250 students.
Wow.
But 70% of them were there on inter-district transfers, which means they didn't actually live in our district. They came there as a district of choice.
Really? Interesting. How many percent?
70%.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. Why? What drew them there?
It was kind of the small family feel of the school. It was also the high quality of the education that they received, the parent engagement. We had an education foundation that was very active. So families really felt like they were part of their education and they were supporting and augmenting what we were able to do with kids.
Also reading about you that you had been, you'd had principal and teaching and experience in Visalia, Delano, down sort of the south central San Joaquin Valley. And so rural schools, although lots of people there, would you still term it a rural sort of environment coming from Visalia?
A little bit more suburban. When I was down in Delano, my school that I was a teacher at and principal at, we had about 1,200 6th, 7th, and 8th graders.
Wow.
And we were only one of 4 middle schools in town.
Oh my gosh.
But we were the biggest, and we were the best, if I may say so. But so we did that. When I was in Visalia, we had about 800 7th and 8th graders, 900. And then, of course, as we moved north, the schools got a little bit smaller. When I was in Corning, about 750 6th through 8th grade students. Ultimately with North Cow Creek with 250. And that's now I'm in
it's an uptick. Yeah. What sort of challenges then do rural schools face that perhaps more urban or suburban schools? What sort of things do you have to confront that you wouldn't have to in a larger school district?
I think the two biggest challenges are access, and there's a whole host of issues that go along with access. What can our kids access as far as extracurricular activities? What can our staff access as far as professional development and resources? What resources can we access to provide additional support? Mental health access, drug and alcohol prevention, outreach services, those kinds of things. The other thing is the resource. Money is a big thing. A lot of the money in California is typically diverted to urban populations, to people who have the ability to go sit in Sacramento and argue for the cash that flows in. There are about 1,000 school districts in the state. Out of those 1,000 school districts, 600 are small and rural school districts, and yet the vast majority of dollars are spent in LA, San Francisco, Fresno, Sacramento, major urban centers. And so you've got 600 school districts that suffer from a lack of funds, which means now we have difficulty finding, hiring, and retaining qualified teachers, support providers like counselors, psychologists, those kinds of things.
So what, do you have to just end up fighting tooth and nail for each little item like that you want to augment in a school district's experience?
Pretty much.
Wow.
We do a lot of outreach with the state superintendent of schools. We meet with him about 3 times a year as a small counties organization, because I don't know if you know, Paul, not only am I the county unified school district superintendent, I'm also the county Office of Education superintendent.
Okay.
So there are only 7 of us in the state that are single district counties like this. And San Francisco is one of them, so we tend to leave them out because they're so different than the rest of us. But through CSESA, which is the California County Superintendents Association, we go down, we meet with the state superintendent, we meet with our legislators quite a bit, we meet with policymakers, with those folks that are working with budget to try to express what the situation is that we have. And we have a lot of people who come up here and visit, and they don't realize that we're as far away from San Francisco. They think, well, how, we're in Del Norte County. Well, is that near Marin? Not really.
Yeah. I had a friend from Massachusetts one time. I said I was driving from Fresno to Crescent City. He goes, "Oh, where's that? Up on the Oregon border? What's that, about 4 hours?"
Yeah.
No. Yeah. So uniquely then, trying to run a district and get your voice heard, our voice heard in Sacramento, have you found that to be extraordinarily difficult? There's kind of this history of, at least on the Del Norte side, this perception of a disconnect between Sacramento and us, and that we constantly have to remind them that we're up here and they just can't make decisions that affect us, or or they do make decisions that affect us, and we find out we have had no say about it. Have you experienced any difficulty getting Del Norte's voice heard in Sacramento?
I'm going to say yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, in that people really don't understand the challenges, because exactly what you said, Paul. It's only 4 hours, right?
Yeah.
When they think that we're north, they think that Redding's about as far north as you can go, and they think Redding's on the coast. And so as we start talking about really where we are and the difficulties that we face, and we invite people up, they are shocked that to get here they have to fly through Portland.
Well, yeah.
Or that the quickest way sometimes to get to Sacramento is through Oregon. And then when we start talking about unique challenges that we face, like in other counties, districts actually make money off one another. And because we're a single district county, we are completely self-enclosed. And so those kind of more entrepreneurial things that other districts can do to offset flagging budgets a little bit is not something that we can avail ourselves of. And so understanding too that our cost of business in some respects is the same as LA Unified on a different scale.
Yeah.
But it impacts us to a larger extent because we have the same requirements for audits, the same requirements for program monitoring reviews, the same requirements for everything else, but we don't have the people to do it. And we're choosing to put our money in the classrooms with our students, not in the district office with people to do these things.
Yeah.
And so they have offices and departments that do these, and we don't. So when we start saying, hey, we're a small rural district, we can't take the same hit that an LA or a San Diego can. We need something different. We're not the voice in the room that's listened to, because we're not the voice in the room that's putting money into the pockets of the election campaigns.
And so in a situation like that, then what do you have to do? How do you augment then if you don't have the...
Well, through CSESA or through another organization, it's called ACSA. It's the Association of California School Administrators. And for about 6 years, I was on the state board. And we would really work with our legislators on trailer language, on smaller bills that would augment some of those smaller programs that would kind of help offset the hits to our budget that we were taking. Some cases we worked directly with the governor's office to make sure that our transportation funds, for instance, weren't cut, because a few years ago they were going to cut transportation.
And I remember that.
Yeah. Can you imagine what it would be? I mean, we've already got students in Klamath who drive 2 hours on a bus every day to get to school. Can you imagine what it would be if we told their parents you have to bring them?
Yeah.
So that's something we don't want to see, but we have to work sometimes around, sometimes backdoor, sometimes, 12th hour budget deals to make that happen. And we do have some really good allies in the legislature that can do that. Some great Republican allies, good friend Brian Dolly, who's on the east side of the state, Mike McGuire, of course, who comes up here quite a bit. So there are some really, really good people who understand small counties, small school districts, and are willing to kind of step up and help us when and where they can.
Okay, so let's talk. I was enrollment. I just read the article just this last week in the Triplicate, and 75 students, right? A fall off of set can affect the school budget by how much? $360,000, something like that?
Well, if you think about it, each student generates between $10,000 and $15,000. Okay, depending on what they are. I guess the type of education we're providing. So if it's a student who receives special education, or if it's a student who is enrolled in our community schools or whatever, that's going to be a higher rate of daily attendance that we get versus a student who's in a typical class. So, you're talking quite a bit of money. Then what we look at is we look at what are the augments that go along with that. So under the local control funding formula, so we get a base amount per kid, but then if the student is an English learner or low income or foster or homeless, we get an additional amount of money. And then if we have a certain percentage of students that fall into one of those 4 categories, we get an additional amount called a concentration grant. Okay. And then on top of that, the federal government gives us Title I, which is Title I of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act that's funded. Title II, which is so Title I is for low-income and low-performing students. Title II is for teacher training and classroom impact. Title III is for limited English students. So we get money, and then Title VI, of course, is for Native American students. So we get funding for all of those programs based on the number of students.
For this primer. I know none of this. So thank you very much.
So it all starts to really snowball with one student, right?
Okay, I got you. So that's got to be, that's a heck of a hit to take. One thing that I was reading through and reading that article, and something that Jeff Napier had said, and used to be a neighbor of mine. I like Jeff a lot. He's a good guy. But it said that the district wasn't thinking about firing anybody.
Right.
That you were staffed appropriately, that there were some things that needed to be changed, but you weren't interested in cutting any teachers loose. And I thought that very refreshing. I thought that's a wonderful. So often you see how teachers are cut, it kind of becomes a cliche in a sense that teachers are cut, class sizes go up, education's going to suffer, but hey, we're solvent. And it was nice to see that. So how do you deal with this shortfall then? Is this one of those, go to these meetings and talk to folks and see if there's a way to augment that, or you just swallow that hit that they take?
Again, it's kind of a wide variety of how we would deal with it. Part of it is we do look for maybe places where we can budget differently, because there are times where we'll put, let's just say $200,000 in professional development money. And on any given year, we'll spend that because professional development money for a lot of people sounds like a lot, $200,000, but that pays for people to come in to train our staff, because one of the things that we've really shifted is instead of sending people to conferences, which can sometimes be seen as junkets or a waste of money or whatever.
You're off to your convention, right?
Exactly, yeah. So we've started bringing people in because we're developing our own experts internally, so that not only do we not have to go out for expertise, people are coming to Del Norte for expertise because we do have that capability. We've got that quality of folks here, and so we're developing those skills. So we spend money on that. We spend money on additional time for staff. So as those staff come to those programs, we're able to offer either an hourly rate or a stipend to have them come in. So in the meantime, let's just play the game where we get a grant. So now we get a grant mid-year that covers the professional development, but we've already budgeted that money.
So you can move the budget.
So we can move the budget over. So now what happens is we've got that money that's sitting there. So that can be money that's freed up to cover a one-time cost as we then start looking at what does this look like in the out years. So we can find those kind of things. Another kind of thing is looking at how we're setting money aside, right? Because I don't know if everybody's aware, but a few years ago we did a facilities plan. There was over $40 million of unmet facilities needs in this district. Huge, huge. We have a new director of facilities.
Was that tied to the passing of Proposition A, to the $25 million bond issue?
I believe that was part of it.
Yeah, exactly. So that I didn't realize at the time that wasn't near what you guys needed.
No, it was actually, given the time that's passed in that particular bond, it's probably less than half of what we need.
Yeah. I've seen what's been going on with the high school for the last year or so. Yeah, that's a big
Hopefully
undertaking.
That'll be done soon.
Oh man.
And a lot of that's energy efficiency. So that, as we look ahead too, those are some other ways that we proactively cut costs. And I heard the discussion earlier about energy and options is we're putting LED in all of our schools. We're doing higher efficiency HVAC units. We're putting in better insulation. We're all those kind of things. So, but anyway, we find ways to try to cut costs. The other thing is we do advocate for more. And unfortunately, when we go to the Capitol, we hear everybody wants money. So that's the other component. And then the other thing we start doing is we start looking at partners. Where can we? And again, I've had this conversation a lot with a lot of our folks locally, is where can we pull our resources? Where can we focus efforts together? Because right now we've got, let's say half a dozen people doing the same thing in different ways. And if we can all work together, it benefits everybody and it costs everybody less. And the outcome for the people of Del Norte is better. And the ability for all of those entities to use their money in different ways expands the quality of care and support that we can give. So
I can't imagine sitting on top of all of these moving parts and keeping them straight. That's amazing to me. So, all right, how's the negotiations with the teachers union coming?
At this point,
I guess we're in mediation now, right?
At this point, we're in mediation. Yeah, which is just part of the negotiations process.
Does that kind of take the pressure off when you finally go, okay, we need to go to the mediator?
It's one of those things. It's a little unfortunate. But I don't know if you know how the negotiations process works. Really, we've got the bargaining unit, the teachers' bargaining unit on one hand, and then we have the people of Del Norte on the other, and our board are elected by the people of Del Norte, and our bargaining team bargains on behalf of the board, who are giving them directions on behalf of the people of Del Norte. So really, it's the bargaining unit with the county. And so as we go through this, we've talked about several of the different options, and some of those are posted online. Those proposals are on our website. But we're at a point now where having that third party come in and work with both sides to look at things, to make sure that nothing was overlooked, that everybody is on the same page. It is helpful. It is beneficial, and I think it gives everybody a chance to breathe a little bit.
And is the mediator where does the mediator? Is it state mediator? It's
somebody from PERB, the Public Employment Relations Board.
Okay, so I mean, they're not going to come in with an agenda, right?
No.
They're going to come in and help you kind of look at everything dispassionately and with fresh eyes. Yeah.
And I'm not involved in the negotiations, so I'm not in the room. I did meet our mediator, and he is very committed to making sure that the outcome is beneficial to both parties.
That's good.
So
That's
good. Really good.
Because you don't want to alienate your teachers, but at the same time, you have to make sure you keep the schools open and everybody coming to school. Jeff, looking back over coming up on 3 years now, what are the accomplishments? What are the things you're most proud of in your time so far with Del Norte? I think two things immediately stick out, and you may have heard of. Well, probably heard of both of them. The first is Read 323. That's the early literacy agenda that we have. We all know that if students aren't on grade level for reading by the end of third grade, they're 50% less likely to graduate high school on time. Yeah.
And so that is one huge piece. And so that's been a large collaborative effort between preschool providers, healthcare providers, private public entities to come together and say, how can we get every kid who wants preschool into preschool? How can we support moms, dads, caregivers in helping with literacy with their students or with their children? So when they become our students, not only are they ready to come into kindergarten and do the kindergarten level of work that they need to, but over the 4 years between kindergarten and third grade, we can get them ready for upper grade work. Because, there's a cliche in the education world. Up until third grade, we're teaching them to read, and starting in fourth grade, they're reading to learn.
Interesting. So, okay, yeah. So it's building the tools and then using those tools. That's good. I remember like that hearing the 50% thing. Just being struck in the head. Really, that's such a black and white sort of statistical line to oh, wow, yeah. You can't argue with that.
Well, and the crazy thing too is the statistics that aren't as quoted are the statistics like if we have low-income students, especially students of color that come in who aren't ready for kindergarten, no matter what interventions you do, no matter how much money you spend, no matter the quality of intervention or the length of time, 80% of those kids will never be on grade level.
Really?
So it's an insane statistic, and that's a national statistic.
And why is that?
If they're not ready, there's a learning curve. So and we're on radio, so visuals don't work.
Yeah, but you're always playing catch up then, right? Because time keeps going forward.
Because you have a straight learning line that goes up year over year, but then you have this curve where about fourth and fifth grade you start to see it starts to deviate from that straight line. And that deviation is now the reading levels aren't there, so they're not able to access the curriculum. They're not able to engage in those higher order thinking skills.
Wow.
And so that gets larger and larger over time, and now you actually have an achievement gap.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right, so biggest challenges. What's something that you maybe have not yet been able to solve or is looming on the horizon that you need to deal with here? What's the cloud out there that you kind of keep? Is there something you keep your eye on? Like, I'm going to watch that and see.
Well, I think the thing that affects everything, of course, is budget.
Yeah.
As we go through, we want to make sure that what we're doing is consistent, that it's something that we can carry through for years to come. Nothing that we're doing, we want to be a flash in the pan. We don't want it to be a 2-year and done type thing. We want it to continue because our families, our students, our county need consistency. So we need to do that. I would say the other thing, too, is as we look at kids holistically, what does it look like? And this is the huge, big umbrella piece. What does it look like for a student to come in transitional kindergarten or kindergarten, to go all the way through 12th grade, to be ready at graduation, to have the skills to either enter the workforce, go to a institution of higher ed, or to make that decision or I guess, be mentally and educationally prepared for whatever comes down the pipeline, and to even have the, and I'm not really expressing this well, to have had experiences and instruction in our schools so that as they go out into the world, this is a place they can come back, because we want them to be entrepreneurs. We want them to be healthy, solid workers for the workforce. We want them to be academics. We want them to be critical thinkers. We want them to understand the heritage, whether they're of the country, of the county, of their tribe, of their family. We want them to feel a sense of belonging, a sense of place. And really, our plan is not to get every kid to graduate. Our plan is to get every kid to graduate, but when they're 25, are they happy, healthy, connected, and a visible, citizenship-oriented person who is contributing to society?
So it's not just about, crossing off, checking off the boxes on, did you learn this, did you learn that, but you're striving to give students the wherewithal to be happy, fulfilled adults.
Yeah.
It is 1 minute past 1. Joan, would you like to wrap up, or do you want me just to go to the Whitney?
I would like to hear Whitney.
Okay, you want to hear the Whitney. Jeff Harris, thank you very much for coming in and talking with us today. And I'd like to do it again sometime, just kind of check in with you and see what's going on with the school district. Is there anything you'd like to add before we cut off?
No, the only thing I would like to say is I just really would like to thank the people of our county for the support that they do give our schools on a daily basis, for communicating with us the needs that they see, and letting us know about the successes that we're having as well. So just thank everybody.
And how can if you're a parent, and I know you get lots of your kids bring home a lot of things, we're having this little flyer, this little that, how best what can parents do to be involved? Contact your local school first. That's the best way to get in. It's got school site councils, things like that.
School site councils, meetings, family engagement nights, academic seminars, all those kind of things that happen at school sites are phenomenal. And then if there are any questions that come up, if there's anything that they really want to know that maybe they're not getting answered, they can always email or call my office, or stop by. We've got an open door.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really, really cool. Jeff, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I hope you have a good Friday. You have to go back to work now?
Oh, yeah. We have 11 principals doing an academy, so I'll be there until tomorrow night.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, no. All right. Jeff Harris, Superintendent, Delaware County Public Schools, and it's great to have him stop by and share sort of the state of the school here in Delaware County.